Now Caroline Ann Crouch again is not one of long American family, because she was born in England. And I don't really have the details of when that family came over, but they were also among those early pioneer saints. Her father's name was William Crouch. I do have one story that involves him. I don't really remember where I read this story, but I found it of great interest. There was a young Latter-day Saint girl living in England. She was not a member of our family, but she wanted to live the gospel and do what she knew was right. She had the opportunity to go to work for a family as a house girl, which a lot of the young women did in those days, work as a house servant. She went to work for this family, and just so happened that she had to sleep in the same bed with the lady who was the cook for the family. And while laying in bed one night, she suddenly felt somebody reaching across and grabbing her and touching her ways that wasn't right. She sat up abruptly in bed and saw that on the other side of the cook in bed was the coachman. He was the one that was guilty of touching her. She jumped out of bed, as a good Latter-day Saint girl should, and was putting up quite a fuss, and they told her to be quiet, you're going to wake the whole house. And she said, well, she wanted to wake the house. This was terrible. Well, they told her it wouldn't do her any good, because the man and the lady of the house was just as bad as everybody else. So this young girl did what any respectable girl should. She grabbed her trunk, she packed her stuff, and she drug it right out into the street. And you got to remember, in those days, if you were to quit your job and walk away from it and didn't get a letter of reference, you very likely have a very, very hard time of finding another job. So this girl was now homeless on the street, had nowhere to go. She turned to one of her friends, who was also a Latter-day Saint girl, and asked her where she could go, what could she do. This girl told her she knew a family by the name of Crouch. So this girl took her friend who had just been kicked out, took her down to the Crouch's family and told the story to William Crouch. Now he didn't want to be taken in by somebody's made-up story. So in his words, he looked into the eyes of this young Latter-day Saint girl, and he saw, as he looked in there, an honest and true person. So he believed her story. He allowed her to live in his home, and it was through her that she introduced him and his family to the gospel. They were then baptized, and then they migrated west with the rest of the pioneers. So Caroline Ann Crouch, who was born in England, was one of our ancestors to come west. Now I don't know exactly when they made the journey west or how they arrived in the Salt Lake Valley, but she arrived west. She married then Philip Stringham, who was born one of the first pioneer children. You know, he was born soon after they got out there. They were married in 1873. Their first daughter was Carrie Claire Stringham, who was my father's mother, so Grandma Hacking. So Carrie Claire Stringham was their first child. Philip worked on the railroad, and there was times when he was away from home, and upon returning one time, he found his wife and children in a destitute situation. They didn't have shoes to wear on their feet. So eventually he was able to settle out into the Ashley Valley, and they made that journey from Salt Lake to Ashley Valley. It took them 21 days to make that journey, and today on the bus you'll probably make it in three and a half hours, maybe 4 hours, and it took those early pioneers 21 days to make that same journey. So this concludes my comments with regard to the Stringham family, Philip Stringham, and particularly Brian Stringham. So make note of it when you go by. This is the place monument, and his wife Caroline Ann Crouch. We'll continue later.